I've heard by the grapevine that there's two people on Earth with patents. Thomas Edison was the first, and Bob Bloch is the next. We found Tom. We were afraid we had lost him. I mean, Bob, we thought we had lost him, but we found him. It's nice to have you, and pleasure to have you. Come on up and talk about intellectual property, something you know a lot about.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Bob Bloch. If I don't know if it's important for me to tell you about my background or not, but I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been involved in lots of different kinds of businesses in terms of U.S. and foreign patents. They probably exceed a couple of hundred, and in all kinds of fields, including some substantial technology. I'm a contributing inventor to the USCL patent. Tom is the principal inventor, and then the other gentleman, is the other inventor, Phil. But perhaps I can explain a little bit about patents so that you understand what they are and what they're not. First of all, a patent, the easiest way to think about it is that the government gives you a monopoly for up to 20 years, so that you're the only person the only company, and these are assigned to the company, that can make, use, or sell a product which infringes the patent. So it's make, use, or sell. So, of course, you can't even import them into the United States if it infringes a patent. So USCL has patent applications in the United States and in several other foreign countries as well. The next thing about a patent is that there's the structure of a patent. There's a disclosure or specification in which you provide a description of the current state, why this innovation is important, how it differs from the other inventions and other activities. And after that disclosure, after that explanation, that mind dump, if you will, there's a set of claims. And the claims effectively say, I claim, or we claim, this particular activity to be innovative, an invention. It's never been done before by anybody else. When a patent is granted, it's granted these claims, the claims that are put in the patent. In USCL's issued patent, there are 6 claims. In addition to that, there are, I think, 42 pending claims. We elected to go forward with the 6 claims, which were allowed by the examiner, so that we could get a patent issued as quickly as possible. The balance of the 42 claims we have to what's called prosecute in the patent office, meaning that we have to explain to the examiner why those claims should be allowed and why they're unique. We've had the good fortune that the disclosure is quite broad. It is very detailed and includes a great deal of information. As we've seen the market itself change somewhat, we're fortunate enough to have in the disclosure the basis of adding some additional claims, in addition to the 42 that are currently pending. And we do that in what's called a divisional patent application. So we have an issued patent using the same disclosure. We have a divisional patent application, And that divisional patent application has a new set of claims, not the same claims as are already granted, because you already have those, but additional claims. The additional claims in the case of USCL are extremely important. We think that they're at least as important as the claims that we've already been granted. And because of the timing, it's taken time, we have the advantage of seeing what's happening in the marketplace. And since a lot of that was disclosed, the disclosure, writing new claims on that, which will expand our control over the intellectual property. Does that make sense to everybody? Is that clear? Because I'd like you to understand that we have an issued patent, and it is applied for in several countries. We have divisional patent applications, because there may be more than one patent application that comes out of the divisionals. The patent office often divides a patent into multiple patents. They say, these are different inventions. And just one more little technical detail, it probably isn't important, but you ought to understand it. There are two kinds of claims in patents. There are what are called independent claims and dependent claims. Independent claims stand on their own. They don't require a relationship to any other claim. Dependent claims depend on other claims, for example, independent claims or other dependent claims. So the architecture and the structure of a patent is very important. USCL has been using a patent attorney in Washington. The fellow that ran that department of a very large law firm, one of the largest in America, Baker Botts, fellow that ran that patent division for quite a while, Fred Michaud, has been my personal patent lawyer for about 40 years. I have never applied for a patent that I didn't get. That's a pretty good record. I have very high confidence that we will get very important additional claims. Now, there's a kind of one going away from the patents themselves, and I'll be glad after this is over to answer any questions if you might have about patents, about how they work and how you apply for them and all that stuff. But I want to talk a little about the value of the patent. Patents are presumed to be valid when they're issued. So we have a valid patent. Large companies often infringe patents, especially from small companies, because they figure that you can't stand the heat. They infringe it with impunity. They say, sue me. And then, of course, they have an army of lawyers that they use to make it so expensive that most individual inventors or small businesses can't afford to prosecute, to assert the patent against them. I want you to know that I've had very, very good success in both settlements and in also going to court, suing a infringer and winning. Now, only about 1% of all patents ever get to court, so it's a rare, it's a rare occurrence. I want to tell you that there are several companies whose business it is to assert patents against infringers. And we have been talking with several of those companies on the basis of the infringement is growing, and it's growing rapidly. that kind of company, the people who would sue infringers, pay the legal fees and all the expenses in the lawsuit, and then share the revenues, or at least several of them share the revenues with the patent owner after first deducting the expenses. So they get their expenses paid back, and then they share it. What's very important about that, some of those companies are worth $1 billion, and they're backed by big guys, Microsofts and big players. And we have had a great deal of interest in the USCL patents. The thing that really is holding it back from making that deal is the level of current infringement. These guys, remember, they're gonna gamble millions, $3 to $5 million in the lawsuit at least. In the lawsuit that I had against the Dish Network, which I won, my Xerox bill was $50,000. My expert witnesses were $600,000, and the whole thing was in excess of $1 million too. That was just for the expenses, not the legal fees. The legal fees were about $3 million. So these are big players. They're big numbers, and what they like the USCL patent very much. They like very much the divisional with the opportunity to have these new claims that we're talking about. The only weak point is that the rollout hasn't happened yet. And of course, that from the point of view of the company, that's good because we want to participate in that rollout. But from the point of view of these patent companies that finance, if you will, lawsuits, they want the infringers to be there already. So we've gone through several cycles of negotiating with them. All of them are encouraging. All of them want to deal with us, but they all want proof that the infringers are already rolled out. So it's going to take a little while longer to get involved with them. But there's no rush. If we sue them a year from now or 2 years from now, when it's a lot more populated, we'll get bigger settlements and bigger and better better arrangements. So, is there anything else you want me to cover, Tom?
I think we should talk about the concept of generating revenue from royalties.
Okay. There's kind of three businesses here. One is to build some products in partnership with other companies, sell them, license the technology to them. The second one is to license the technology to any third-party companies that want to license. And the third one is to sue anybody who infringes the patents and not pay us. So kind of those are the three different mindsets. In one case, you want to be a partner, and you participate with technology companies. In another case, you're getting royalties, and in the third case, you're getting either a settlement or a lawsuit.
And in our case, who is what we call the single user enabler?
Oh, okay. This is a little complicated, so just bear with me for a moment. What the invention is here is a meter, utility meter, that communicates with an in-home display. Okay? That's kind of the essence of what the patent is about. Now, the meter may be sold by one company, and the display may be sold by another company. The fact is, those two companies have to have a relationship of some kind so that they work, so that the products work together. There has to be standards or some arrangement so that the meter outputs things that the display can accept, and the display outputs things the meter can accept. So there's got to be a relationship. But independently, they may not be infringers. In other words, the meter is making, manufacturers making a meter that is capable of communicating with somebody, but he doesn't sell the display. And the display guy is selling a display. There's one theory that argues that they may not be infringers. The guy who is certainly a infringer, well, the principal infringer, is the guy who facilitates that, the utility that buys the meter, arranges with somebody to, maybe it'll be sold through Lowe's or something like that. A customer buys the display, and then they operate together through the electric company and possibly the water company and gas company. So the single point infringer, as it's called, or in this case is the utilities, which means that they may be our principal target in any infringement suits. Now, what they're going to do immediately is to bring in the people that sold them the meter, and of course, brought into the case will be Lowe's and Home Depot and whoever else is selling the display that is able to talk to the meter. And in effect, these lawsuits can get to be lots of very big players. You know, it'll be the consumer products industry that is selling the meters, that are selling the displays, and the meter companies that are selling the meters, and the utility company that is providing the service and using. Remember, I told you patents give you the right to prevent people from make, use, or sell. So the utility is using, and the parties are selling. I personally think that there's direct infringement by the meter manufacturer and the display manufacturer, so long as they make arrangements that facilitate each other. So we talked in terms of the amount of money here. I don't like to talk about big numbers, but it won't be surprised to me if it's in the B's, not in the M's. We're talking about utility companies that collect a couple of $1,000s a year from the average home, and there's 150 million meters out there. You multiply 150 million times a couple thousand, and you got a lot of money, and you get 1 or 2% of that. It is a very large amount of money, and it happens every year. Now, neither the utilities nor the meter manufacturers nor the display people will want to settle for a annual or monthly royalty. They will resist that very much. So in the end, what will probably happen is what we think about a discounted cash flow. We value the patents out over a period of years, discount the money. Said, if I collected it over those years, how much is that today? At some discount to that is what you settle for. So we're talking about very large numbers. And one of the potential implications here that could be very, very big is what's happening with electric automobiles. If the industry turns to having people charge their car at home overnight, there will be an extraordinary additional amount of electricity sold that will have to go through the technology that we're talking about. They have to meter it. They have to communicate with the vehicle. There's a whole, so it will look like an appliance. I think there's one more thing to mention, and that is that starting in 2012, I think it is, right, Tom? In 2012, all the major utility appliance manufacturers are going to begin making smart appliances. Smart appliances meaning they can talk to and be controlled by that display in the house or that meter, which is what we've got a patent on. And so, in order, and in fact, the appliances, the refrigerator or the washing machine, will probably have displays that will infringe our patent. So, if you look, yeah, of course. When I say infringe, would they may become a licensee? If they do, then that's great. That means we get paid some royalties on it. I will say this to you: it will not go overnight. It will require at least some litigation because these big guys with GE is just going to say, "I'll meet you in court." I'll just tell you about three brief things. I invented the way you do pay-per-view, and I invented parental control, and I also invented the way you control a large number of subscribers from a central point. And all the cable operators were infringing it. The two suppliers of the cable industry were a company called Scientific Atlanta, and at that time General Instruments, now division of Motorola. And the two basic satellite players were the Dish Network and DirecTV. I had to sue them all. Scientific Atlanta I didn't have to sue because Scientific Atlanta became my partner. That was how I afforded to make the first lawsuits. I partnered with them. They put up the money. I put up the patents, and we went to sue their competitor, which was General Instruments. And we made a very good settlement about that. The DirecTV, after going through the depositions, immediately settled. Once they saw the case that they were going to be up against, they decided they didn't want to go any further. They certainly didn't want an old bearded guy sitting there as a witness and talking about these guys ripping me off. That's not a good picture for a jury if you're on the big company side. So we do have some strength there. The Dish Network wouldn't settle. Their CEO has a policy. He doesn't settle with anybody. So we went to court, and we won. And we got a lot of money out of them as a result of that. So I've got the experience, and I'm saying to you, don't have the expectation that we're going to walk into people like GE, point out that they're infringing, and them say, "Oh, I'm sorry. How much do you want me to pay you?" It's not going to happen. We're going to go through some litigation before that happens. If we partner with one of these litigating companies that has $1 billion or a very large amount, the settlements come faster because the major companies know these guys are not going to run out of money. We're not going to spend them into oblivion like we are maybe a little company like USCL would just cost them $5 million, $10 million, $20 million. It doesn't make any difference how much it costs. It'll be less than we have to pay if we infringe their patent and have to pay them a royalty. So there's going to be a process, and I want you to understand that. But I think we all sit as shareholders in a catbird seat. We sit very early in the process that these patents were filed. We have a priority date that's very early. It's before the industry itself or the government decided that the smart network was something important. So we're sitting early in the process with our patents. They're very valuable, and we're going to, I think, make very large amount of money.
Can we renew a patent for how many years?
A patent starts on the filing date and is good for 20 years. And you don't get the issued patent on the filing date. It may take 3 years or 4 years to get the issued patent. But you cannot extend the patent. What you can do is get more patents, that maybe surround some new patents that are improvements and additions. And in a sense, that's what we're doing, we will be doing in the continuing development. But the patents will expire 20 years from their filing date, except it's this. I just had 2 patents granted within the past 3 months. Both of the patents that I had granted, I got an extension of the expiration date more than 800 days. In other words, the patent office extended and why they did that is because they were very slow in processing the patent. There's currently a backlog of 750,000 patents in the U.S. Patent Office, a backlog. And they haven't had enough money in the Patent Office to actually deal with this. And the good news is that last week there was a bill passed to provide additional funds to the Patent Office. I had a meeting with the head of the Patent Office, and there was a effort on the part of the big guys, the IBM and Microsoft and those guys, to change the patent law to the disadvantage of small companies or independent investors to help the big guys avoid these big. They tried to get a law called S515 and held hostage the patent office. They wouldn't fund the patent office with the extra money until they could get this. They lobbied until they could get it, but we lobbied against that. I participated in that, and we were able to separate the 2 issues, and the patent office was funded. So we still have to worry about these the big guys trying to hurt us, but we're a lot better off. Is there anything else?
I don't have any questions, but we're going to.
Well, you'll ask questions later, but yeah, okay.
Thanks, Bob. Good to see you. All right, we're at a time now where we're toward the end of the day, but this is now your time. And oh, I'm sorry. Where did I missed you, Ray? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You're next. Ray Prescott. Sorry, Ray. I'm sorry. I did mix these up. I was like Bob. I got lost driving my way through this paperwork today.
No problem. It's been a long day. A lot. It's kind of hard to follow Tom and Manny and Bob. I had a long presentation planned out, but I'm not going to give it. I just wanted to, I think my background is in technology and technology development, primarily in the semiconductor field. And I've gone through a lot of items that have been invented, not necessarily by myself, but in the introduction team. It was mentioned flash memory was one of them. And the flash was developed in the late 90s or mid 90s, and most of you haven't heard of it until about 6, 7 years, 8 years later. Yeah, when the flash memory sticks start coming out. At any rate, I've been one of Tom's longtime associates, and a continuous investor in the funds just to keep things going. I personally like the business model that USCL has. I like Tom and Emily's work ethic, and I personally find Tom is a very honest individual. And I'm speaking more here as a director of the company. As it's been brought out, the business model that we have isn't simple like opening up a franchise McDonald's or an Ace Hardware store where there's a clear-cut path in what you have to do. The type of business model that we're in, the best analogy I could use is like a maze. You know, I'm sure all of you have seen a book which got a maze in it. You know, you start here and you go through the maze and try to figure out how to get out of it. Well, that's what I call a two-dimensional maze. There's another kind of maze. It's a hedgerow maze, and it's one where you start at the beginning and you're in the hedgerows and you can't figure out which direction to turn every time you come to a juncture. And in the technology business, that's kind of the way things are. So you need key individuals that are vigilant. And when I say vigilant, being fully aware of what's going on internally within their own organization, with the mid-level marketing group, and all the way through to the end customers. And I think Bob has shed a little bit of light on that. So vigilant is a key attribute to have. Marketing skills are very important, and I'm happy Manny made a very good presentation. I think we'll all agree that he's got some good, very good marketing skills. And as the company takes off, management development is going to be a very key aspect, because it's been what I've seen in the technology industries, they grow so fast, 30 to 50% a year. The management and the organization has to develop their capable skill sets at that rate. And it's very difficult for someone to improve their skill sets at that rate. So we've always got to be vigilant to make sure that the organization grows with Tom and Manny. So I'm like I say, I'm speaking more as a director, kind of watching out over things. We've already spent plenty of time on the key idea and the intellectual property. That's another major thing that's needed for a successful tech business. And finally, consistent and reliable funding. Many tech companies, they get started in a garage, and then they get some revenue coming in, and then they've got a source of income to keep them going. We as a company and shareholders don't have that luxury, don't have that consistent revenue or royalty stream coming in. So I think Tom alluded to the fact that Tom and Emily have sacrificed quite a bit and lived occasionally living on the edge. But so I want to thank you and Emily for being there and doing that. It's made the difference. What other key points am I going to make? Oh, yeah. On the funding, I know Tom has, like I said, been with him before 2000. And I know we went out to try to raise some money, and there was a dot-com burst. Remember that, Tom? That was terrible. And then 9/11. Yeah, then 9/11. And then this derivative thing, that fell apart. And I've gone out with Tom to a few venture capitalists fairs, where you present your company, and all the venture capitalists sit around and decide who they're going to invest money in. Well, there are only about 1 out of 20 people that try to get a venture capitalist funding ever get it. And there's certain niches that these venture capitalists are looking at. At the time, it was companies that design analog surgery and new drugs and medicine. Those were the two things in vogue. If you weren't in those niches, they didn't want to talk to you. So, we
Now there's a new niche, it's called smart grid.
now there's a new niche. Yeah, but the thing about venture capitalists, it's kind of eye-opener. They can give you some money, but I'll tell you, they want at least 50% of your company, maybe more. So they're kind of bandits. Any rate, just looking to the future, I'd like to continue representing you on the board of directors. And one of the things that I do on a monthly basis, I give Tom a little money to make sure the company, I'm sorry, not Tom, USCL Corporation. I give him a little money to kind of help make the ends meet. Okay, I hope that was brief enough, and I say thank you again for being here.
All right, let's open it up, and then Tom will do a wrap-up for us at the very end. We have a lot of ways you can ask questions. One, if you're in the room, you can stand up and then direct your question to who you'd like to have answer it. We also have email capability, and we have a process for that, do we? Tom is the secretary in charge of that. And then any other process that we may have, we will take them and answer the questions. So let's go around the room. Let's start over here.